Given your recent escape, it would not be wise to linger here. You weigh your options. You could address the problem head on by returning to the Harris house to look for clues. You might also consider returning to the hotel to gather your thoughts. Or you could simply put this all behind you and skip town. It's too late and too foggy for the ferry to be operational, but you know there are smaller side roads that wind around the lake. You would have to make the journey on foot and in the dark. But an unpleasant option is still an option. Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is Call of Cthulhu, solo gameplay, alone against the tide. In the last episode, our character, Ellery Wood, who had acquired some items, including a journal of Professor Harris at an auction in the previous session, looked through the journal in the morning and found some interesting items, but he also found that some pages were missing. And so we went to Harris's house to confront his widow with the intention, perhaps, of asking her what happened to the missing pages. However, no sooner had we gotten there than the police arrived, sent there by a guy named Joshua, who seems very protective of the widow and angry at us for talking to her. And they made a false arrest and put us in jail. We then tried to break out. We lockpicked and we tried to make a stealth. And we would have failed if we hadn't spent our luck. It cost 33 luck to make that roll, leaving us with only 17 luck to go. Remember, you can use luck to adjust die rolls, 1 point per point of luck. You can also make a luck roll, and if you roll under your luck, you succeed. That means if we ever get asked to make a luck roll from now on, we only have a 17% chance to succeed, and if we miss any die roll by more than 17, we do not have enough luck anymore to adjust it. Sort of the one you get. We left off standing on the road, as I just introduced, and trying to decide what to do next. And what I have in my notes is we decided we're going to investigate the Harris house. I want to see if we can find the missing notes. You make your way through the foggy streets of Esbury, heading once more to the Harris house. As your feet hit the road's flagstones, you hear the sound of your footsteps reflected back by the walls of the buildings all around you. Otherwise, all remains quiet and sleepy. The light is very dim and growing darker by the second. By the time you find yourself once more at Amelia Harris's home, night has fallen. As you approach the building, you freeze dead in your tracks as a woman in a red dress passes mere feet from you, Amelia Harris. She doesn't seem to notice you, in part because of the fog, but also because she looks lost in thought. You watch her move hurriedly through the mist and enter the nearby church. You could choose to enter the Harris house and search the premises, or you could choose to pursue Amelia for questioning. Now, why is she going into the church in a beautiful red dress? Do we want to go into the house? I'm not very stealthy, but I do have some locksmithing, so I could possibly pick the door. Or do we want to follow Amelia and see where she's going? We don't have a lot of stealth, but I'm super curious what Amelia is up to. I think we're going to follow her. You hurry through the shrouded streets and take refuge in the church. The door creaks abominably as you enter. So there's no chance of slipping in unnoticed. You find yourself in a large chapel with hand-carved pews flanking you on either side. These continue for several rows until they reach a pulpit from which the priest would normally conduct services. With the last of the fog, filtered daylight fading through the stained glass windows, you are aware that these are not the hours for a typical service. The church is open to the public during off times, but the sole occupants are yourself and Amelia, who's taken a seat in the front row and is praying with her head bowed. She doesn't lift her gaze as you take a seat next to her. You sit for a minute and allow her time to finish her prayers. You need information from her, but you are respectful of her devotions. Finally, she opens her eyes and looks at you, sighing softly as she does. She looks somewhat nervous, and the color drains from her face. What is it you want? You're not supposed to be here. To press for more information about Professor Harris's death or ask for Joshua, about Joshua, those are our two options. So I want to know more about the professor's death, so let's press her a little bit on that. You ask about Professor Harris's death and how it came to happen, fearing that you already know the answer to your inquiries. Amelia takes a deep breath before answering, Joshua killed him. You press further, asking about the nature of their relationship and how this relates to her husband's death. She stares back at you blankly and takes a deep breath. Josh and I have been intimate for a few years. My husband was a good man when he wasn't obsessing over his work, but he was sometimes away for so long and paid so much attention to his books. I have needs. A woman my age shouldn't be neglected. I met Josh through his whiskey business. He bootlegs for the whole town. One thing led to another, and she smiles, looking lost in thought. We were happy, even with William around. Recently, though, Josh had been insistent that we get him out of the picture so that we could be together. I didn't like it, but I agreed. I let Josh take care of it. I just wanted it to be behind us and for us to be together. I told him I wanted to sell everything and leave the town. Just the two of us. I think that was the first time I saw him angry, but he never said why. She looks down at her hands, trying to avoid your gaze. You don't have to worry about anything. We'll leave town just as soon as we can. I suggest you do the same. She looks at you one last time and frowns. I might not have loved him especially, but I don't want to discuss my late husband's death any further. If you simply must dig into it, feel free to search my home. I left the door unlocked, so it shouldn't give you any trouble. Now leave me alone. She stands and walks over to the altar. She kneels and begins to pray, forgetting your presence. You take your cue to leave. Now, if what Amelia is saying is true, she's an accessory to murder. So I'm not sure why she thinks she can just walk away. Joshua killed her husband, and she helped him. So she's going to jail if anybody with any legal power finds out about it, although it seems like we have some corrupt cops who are on the take with Joshua, letting him bootleg and so on. So we can continue to the Harris house, go to the hotel, or give up and follow her advice and leave town. So we're going to go to the Harris house. She let us in. With no immediate threat to yourself, you are free to explore the Harris's home, though you do so quickly in case someone comes looking. Glancing about the sitting room you are in, you find it's in a bit of a mess from the earlier scuffle. Glancing toward the entrance, you note the foyer, filled with boxes, crates, and other unidentifiable objects covered with dust sheets. You poke your head into the next room and find a kitchen and an adjacent dining room, both spotlessly maintained, though sparsely furnished. Peeking beneath the dust sheets in the entryway, you find various items of furniture and decor, as well as stacks of books. Many of them are historical texts and reference materials, some of which were written by Professor Harris himself. There are also a large number of general works of science and literature, as befits any well-educated man. You place the cover back down, sensing that you will find nothing of value here. You turn your attention instead to the set of stairs opposite the entrance. You ascend the staircase and see two doors, one to either side of you. The door to your left is slightly ajar and no doubt leads to the bedroom. By a process of elimination, the door to your right must lead to the study. It seems to be locked, and your earlier search of the house did not yield a key. With enough time, you might be able to get the door open, but it would probably be unwise to spend too long trying, since Amelia or one of those close to her may return soon. I don't know if it matters if Amelia returns, but it might matter if Joshua finds us. So we can go into the bedroom. We can try to make a locksmith roll to go into the study. We can attempt to push the roll, but if we fail, there are going to be greater consequences. So in Call of Cthulhu, if you fail a roll, you can say, I'm going to push it. And if you succeed, you succeed. And if you fail, then whatever the consequences would have been are like squared. It's much worse, right? So let's say you shoot somebody and you fail, so you miss, right? And you're going to push the roll. You try to shoot again, essentially. This time, if you fail, maybe the gun explodes in your hand and you take damage. So I don't know if we're going to want to push the roll, but I think we should try locksmith, because we're pretty good at this skill. Our locksmithing is 50, and we've already succeeded at it once. So let's try. We're going to pick the lock. And we get an 11. That's a hard success. So that's excellent. It's almost an extreme success. So we succeeded. You reach into your pocket and produce the bobby pin that you carry on you for just such an occasion. And of course, we've already used this in the jail. You insert it into the lock and fumble with it for a few minutes. It sticks and strains, and for several terrible seconds you fear that it will break in the lock, and then the tumblers give and the door clicks open. You push your way into the small study and find the room much as you expected. The door opens across from a window, which lets in the pale greenish light of the mist. This illuminates the room, which is adorned primarily with mostly empty bookcases. There are also several glass display cases throughout the room, but these are similarly empty. At the far end of the room, just beneath the window, is a desk still littered with the professor's blood-soaked papers. Searching through the desk drawers, you find stacks of notes and various personal items. Buried in the bottom drawer, you find an impossibly old scrap of papyrus pressed into a glass frame. All across the ancient document are strange and unusual scrawls. As you pick it up to inspect it, you notice a sheet of paper lightly attached to the back of the frame, bearing the same scrawls as the papyrus, but with annotations in its margins. Presumably, this is a translation of the papyrus's text. As you read it over, you marvel at the impossibility of its content. The papyrus purports to be written by a priest from an unknown city by the name of Ilarnek. In this account, the priest records observations of an odd and ugly race of beings who once lived upon a lake in the forgotten land of Nar. The document goes into great detail about the fire rituals of these strange creatures and speaks of the haunting dances they would perform in the light of the flames beneath the gibbous moon, and always under the watchful gaze of a sea-green stone idol chiseled in the likeness of a great lizard. Well, we've seen that one before. The priest's writings go on to mention rituals used to ward off the influence of that detestable creature, rituals performed by humans. The text for the ritual in the annotation is untranslated and simply rendered in standard characters so that it reads, Yahayar Nog Glyu A Bokrug. The strange phrase sticks in your mind. You pause for a moment to consider the implications. You carefully detach the translation, fold it up, and put it into your pocket as evidence before exiting the study. We have now learned a ritual chant, so we're going to note that on our investigator sheet on the second page. We're going to write down in, I guess, encounters with strange entities that we have and learned a ritual chant. I think that's where you put it. I don't see any other place to put it on the character sheet, so we'll put it there. And now we know that we have learned this ritual. So at some point, if it asks us if you know a ritual, we'll say yes. All right, so I've noted it down. It says we have to go to a particular entry, and I've written that entry down for the record. And now you turn around and leave the door closed behind you. Looking down the stairs, you realize that you are not alone. Dominating the entryway is Joshua, red-faced and furious. He has a gun in his right hand, which he quickly aims in your direction. You have just a second to hit the ground before he pulls the trigger. Perhaps your reflexes are quick enough. Uh-oh. Make a dodge roll. So our dodge is 50, so we have a 50-50 chance. If we get up to a 67, we could use luck. It doesn't say we can push the roll. Now, of course, under normal circumstances in Call of Cthulhu, you would ask the keeper if you could push the roll, and he'd say yes or no. But in this case, we can only push the roll when the rules say. Okay, so we have to make a dodge roll. We have a 50-50 chance. We get Oh my gosh, an 89. Luck cannot help us here. So we have failed. We're now going to take 1 die 10 plus 2 damage. So we have 11 hit points. So we might be able to survive this. We take 6 damage and go down to 5. So we survived the shot. So we are hit somewhere, but not fatally. Joshua aims the gun at you, and you freeze in shock. The weapon goes off in his hand. Bang! And the bullet whizzes through the air, tearing open your left shoulder and throwing you back against the wall. You collapse in a heap of blood oozing from your wound. You know it isn't fatal, but that doesn't make the pain any less. As you struggle to fight through the pain, you find Joshua standing over you. The look on his face is one of pure rage. This is the last thing you see before you are clubbed into unconsciousness. You awaken, stripped of any weapons, and tied to a chair in a dusty basement. The first thing you notice is the pain from your wounds. They are still fresh and have not been tended to in any way. The second thing you notice is the table across from you with a strange collection of items. A pair of cracked clay cylinders, a gemstone-studded altar with curious scrawls, a stack of papers, and an unnatural-looking idol of sea-green stone fashioned in the shape of a lizard-like creature. So these are all the items at the auction that were of interest. Now they're all collected in one place. Standing next to the table is a man that you can't quite make out in the dimness of the room. He puffs absently at a cigar as he stares at you. Behind the table is a still and other bootlegging equipment. Okay, so we know this guy is a bootlegger, so this has got to be Joshua's place. I'm not sure who the person is with the cigar. You turn your head to see one of the suited men from before leaning against the door, sipping from a flask. When you begin to move, the unknown man walks over to you. He grins widely, and you spot a glint of madness in his eyes as he hovers at the edge of the illuminated area. He produces a knife from his pocket, and the blade catches the glimmer of a dim bulb flickering above. The stranger shoots a glance at the suited man by the door, who nods and leaves. The remaining man comes into the light and presses the knife against your cheek. It digs into your flesh, nicking and drawing a drop of blood on the tip. Thought you could cause trouble for Josh, eh? I'm going to enjoy this. Getting rid of my little problem. Everything was fine until you started snooping around. You're putting me and Amelia both in danger here, and you're getting in the way of my plans. So I'm going to enjoy tearing open your throat and offering up your life to the idol. Perhaps it will please him, and then I'll get what I want. I'll finally make my way to that beautiful place that I've seen in my dreams. It will be over soon, but I will bleed you slow because I want to enjoy this. He takes the knife and presses it deeper. You struggle reflexively against your bonds, trying to escape the pain. Perhaps you struggle hard enough, you can break free. So we get to make a strength roll. Our strength is 50, so we have a 50-50 chance. And we get a 20. So that is a hard success. Doesn't ask for that, though. So we succeeded. You struggle against your bonds as you begin to panic. Mercifully, they give way. Joshua is shocked by the sound of snapping rope echoing off the walls, and he jumps away from you on pure reflex. You act on instinct. Without thinking, you rush toward him, attempting to wrestle the knife from his grasp. You know that you need to be the one in control of the weapon if you're going to survive this, especially as there's another armed man just outside the door. You grasp Joshua's forearm, preventing him from attacking you with the knife. You then try to pry it from his hand, even as you jab and strike at him with knees and elbows, hoping desperately that you can snatch the blade from his grip. We now make a fighting brawl roll. We're okay at this. We have a 50%. So let's see if we can succeed at this. We get a 0-2. Guys, that is a critical success. Not sure if it matters in this particular case, but that is a critical success. Very nice. So we succeeded. You throw a punch at Joshua's face and send him stumbling backward, stunned. You manage to rip the knife from his grasp as he regains his footing. You take the blade and swiftly plunge it into his chest. Joshua's face takes on a pained and shocked expression, as if offended that you dare to kill him. Still, he slumps to his knees. He looks up at you as he begins to die. His eyes glaze over and stare at you with a smoldering malevolence. Strange words pass from his lips as the last of his life fades away. Bokrug ron bthuk giftai. A last shuddering breath rattles his body, and he slumps into a lifeless heap at your feet. You feel greatly disturbed by this, but you attempt to shake it off and move on. A survey of the room reveals a table at the far end, and it is covered with curious artifacts, as well as a large stack of papers. There is little else here, save for the flickering bulb above you, the empty chair, and Joshua's dead body. You might consider leaving this place, as sitting in a dank basement with a fresh corpse is not entirely pleasant experience. First, we make a sanity roll, and we're going to see if we lose some sanity for killing somebody. We have a 50, so we have a 50-50 chance. 75, we failed, and that means we lose 1d3 sanity points, so we roll 1d6 and take half. And we got a 1, so we lose a sanity point. So our sanity has gone down from 50 to 49. Okay. So we lost a little bit of sanity, and now we can either look over the items or leave. Well, let's look over the items because we've been interested in these items, and I really wanted to get more from them. You stand over the table of curious artifacts, confident that they have something to do with the strange events in Esbury. You decide it's best to look them over now and glean what information you can from them. You begin by leafing through the stack of notes. You realize they contain some of the same characters that are written on some of the ancient items. You may be able to use these notes to assist in any translation attempts you wish to make. There is also an empty sack on the table that was used to bring the relics here. You are free to load them back up and take them with you. After we examine each item, we add it to our inventory. So we have the journal. Let's see. I can't select any option more than once. We already have the journal, right? That's because that's ours, and I have that in my inventory. I'm going to look at it again just in case, but that's not the first one we want to look at because we've already done that. So let's take a look at the idol. You look the idol over. It is made of a sea green stone and chiseled in the likeness of a water lizard of some sort. The sculpture is grotesque and hideous, and the depiction of the lizard-like creature unnerves you. Still, the work is extremely well preserved and unquestionably ancient. You feel uncomfortable staring at the alien-looking thing for too long, so you stow it away in the sack, out of sight. So now we have the strange idol. So I will add that to our list of artifacts. And now we're going to take a look at the cylinders. You turn the hardened clay cylinders over in your hands, and your eyes fall on the large cracks running through both items. Despite this damage, their solid construction has led the cylinders to the cylinder's survival throughout the ages. The next most obvious quality is the strange writing that is plastered along the side of each cylinder. It's quite remarkable in that it doesn't resemble any language known to you. Using the notes on the table, you might be able to translate it. So now we can make an archaeology roll, which we're pretty good at. And if we succeed, maybe we'll get some more information. 70 is our best skill. And we get a 51, so we succeeded at archaeology. You turn the hardened clay cylinders over in your hand and squint to make out the tiny script pressed into their sides. Consulting the notes stacked beside you, you begin to work out a rough translation. The cylinders tell the story of the lake mist green beings of Ib, with their bulging eyes, pouting flabby lips, curious ears, and voiceless mouths. It speaks of the origins of these strange beings, how they descended one night from the moon in a mist and gave praise to the chiseled sea stone idol of Bokrug beneath the gibbous moon. It goes on to describe their strange city of stone and their ritual destruction of precious metals to appease this detestable water lizard. The tale is perplexing and impossible, but if true, it is rather frightening. You recall the green mist outside and note with alarm that the moon is gibbous tonight. As you place the clay cylinders into the sack, you glance over at the sea green idol nearby and are further chilled by what this might portend. And now we get to increase our Cthulhu Mythos skill by 2. Now this is a little weird in that they said to increase it by 2. They don't say anything else. In the actual rules, it worked automatically. In the actual rules, every time you gain Cthulhu Mythos, you lose that amount of maximum sanity. So our maximum sanity was 99. When I just added 2 points of Cthulhu Mythos automatically on the character sheet, my maximum sanity went down to 97. So it doesn't harm our current sanity, but it does harm our maximum sanity. Our current sanity right now is still 49. Okay. So we now have the clay cylinders as well in our possession. So I will write that down or type it. And then we now can look at the altar. You examine the extraordinary altar. The most readily apparent features beyond its size are the many gemstones set into its surface. They are of a greenish-yellow color and shine even in the half-light of the room. You also notice strange lettering written in broad strokes along the object's sides. The symbols are smeared and sloppily done, suggesting they were written with some haste. What you had originally taken for paint is, upon closer examination, dried blood. While you cannot be certain, it would appear that this item has been involved in some tragedy. Using the notes on the table, you may be able to piece together a translation of the text written in blood. And once again, we get to make an archaeology roll. So it's pretty good that we have this great archaeology skill of 70. Let's see. 43. So we succeeded again. You fix your eyes on the strange altar and then on the stack of notes. Rifling through them, you are able to piece together the characters written in dried blood on the altar's side. Bokrug brings doom to Sarnath. As you look over the altar, you also notice smaller letters, this time written in ink, hidden just beneath the larger bloody characters. The smaller text appears to be some sort of chant. Yahayar Nog Nglu A Bokrug. The words stick in your mind. As you begin stuffing the religious object into your sack, you notice a similar script on the other side of the altar, written in fresh blood. Most of the characters are the same, and you once again consult the notes for a fresh translation. You decode the missing word to find that the text now reads, Bokrug brings doom to Esbury. Somewhat unnerved, you finish shoving the altar into your bag, knowing that it's evidence of some sort of cult practice or deranged belief. So again, we've earned a ritual chant, and that's the same one. All right, so we've read the journal, and we've learned the ritual chant, and we've got the altar now. So I think we're ready to get out of here. I don't know that we need to read the journal again. So we can check the bedroom upstairs or leave the house. Gosh, the guy might be up there. I think we can just leave the house. We've got what we want here. This is the information that we need, right? You decide that you've seen enough of Joshua's house and that you have no reason to linger here. You exit the building and close the door behind you. You look out into the fog and find it thicker than you remember. You can see almost nothing. Compounding this problem is the darkness, which has completely fallen while you were inside. Armed with new knowledge, you feel prepared to confront what lies ahead of you. You take a few steps into the street and are shocked to find the town's cobblestones waterlogged. The lake's water level is rising and Esbury is beginning to flood. Given earlier events, you suspect that this may not be entirely natural. Even if it is, the rapidly rising water is a serious threat in itself. You feel a twinge of fear, but overcome it and spur yourself into action. You know you must escape the flood, and that you must act quickly. If you know where to meet with Banyu, now is the time. you may choose to do so, but we don't. So we can search for higher ground, try to outrun the tide, or meet up with Banyu, but we don't have any way to meet up with him. So do we want to go to higher ground or try to outrun it? I think we probably want to try to go to higher ground. You try to find somewhere you can wait out the flood, somewhere at a high elevation that won't be consumed by rising water. Thanks to the darkness and the fog, you won't be able to scan the town's skyline to look for such a place and will instead have to rely on your memory. The only place close that comes to mind would be the nearby church. If the worst should happen, you could climb up into the bell tower and wait out the flood. You rush toward the house of worship. You see its solid gray stonework peeking out at you from the fog, providing a sense of comfort and security. You push open the church's large double doors and slip inside, quickly closing the door behind you in the hopes that they will buy you at least some time before the water seeps in. You rush up to the stairs leading up to the bell tower and climb them as quickly as you can. You soon find yourself looking out over Esbury. The town itself is shrouded in mist, but from this high vantage point you can see over the fog to the lake beyond. Large undulating waves break the surface of the normally placid waters, and the stars and gibbous moon are brightly reflected from the dark backdrop. Finding yourself in relative safety, you finally have a moment to pause and reflect. You take a deep breath, bowing your head in thought, or perhaps in prayer. Your mind is a whirl, but eventually a single thought breaks through determining your course of action. And now it says if you know a ritual chant, now is the time you may choose to use it. So we do know a ritual chant about Bokrug, so I guess we're going to use the chant. So let's go to the entry that it told us to use. The words of the ritual chant force themselves into your mind. You stare blankly at the reflection of the moon and the stars upon the rising waters of the lake. Your lips move as if controlled by someone else, automatically uttering the strange symbols of the unfamiliar words. Yahyar, Nog, Yu, Ah, Bokrug. You recite the words in this slow, monotonous voice, speaking the phrase 10 times before you stop. You feel strangely tired after this, so you sit on the belfry's stones and look out over the town. The water has risen so high over the tops of many of the buildings of Esbury, and you're positioned on one of the few landmarks still above water. You're certain that much damage has been done here. At least the water is still placid now, apparently returned to its normally peaceful state. The unnatural green mist seems to be dissipating as well. It still lingers here and there, but by the light of the gibbous moon, you can see the fog starting to thin out. You take a deep breath, pondering what is to come next. So we do have the strange idol. Exhaustion overtakes you. You lean back, close your eyes, and drift into a deep slumber. Your sleep is disturbed by strange, horrific dreams. You see a shining city of marble onyx and lustrous gems. You see this magnificent city in all its splendor sitting next to a placid lake. And then in an instant it's gone as the water rises up to swallow it. The lizard thing of the idol, given life and power, surges from the water. The being eyes you with malicious sentience as the waters swell and consume you. You exist in this state for what feels like an eternity, drifting through the sunken ruins alongside the horrible lizard thing. It eyes you closely, scrutinizing your every moment. But it never acts, merely watching you with checked malevolence. As you stare into its eyes, you begin to wish it would simply consume you, so that you wouldn't have to be under its watchful gaze any longer. This becomes a maddening desire, and you find yourself willingly swimming toward the thing. It opens its jaws to receive you, revealing row after row of needle-like teeth. Just as you're about to offer yourself to the creature, you finally wake. You find yourself dangling at the edge of the belfry, about to roll into the flooded town below and lose yourself in the waters. You quickly pull yourself back toward the center of the platform for safety. As you do so, a glimmer within your sack catches your eye. You Reach inside to find the source and extract the sea green stone idol. It shimmers with a bluish white light of angry intensity. Looking at it pains your eyes. You consider throwing the damnable thing into the water below, but something stops you. A thought creeps into your mind, taking shape and driving your actions. We now get to make a power roll. Our power is 50, so we have a 50-50 chance. And we get a 17. That's a hard success. Your mind clouds over once more, as if dreaming again. You see the strange city in your mind's eye. Your vision passes over precious metals, changing hands between exotic merchants. Discs of silver and gold move from buyer and seller before disappearing into bags and boxes. You glide formlessly over the city and out into the surrounding lands, where you see the citizens marching in lines, carrying precious metals to the city from the mines. You float above it all and look out to the lake, where you sense brooding hatred and disgust. Your awareness snaps back to reality as you stare at the idol's light. You make the connection between those precious metals and this grotesque lizard thing's disdain. So now if we have a gold bar, we can do something with it. But I don't know if we do. We have a bronze crown, clay cylinders, an altar, a robe, and a strange idol, but we do not have a gold bar. So I guess we won't be able to appease it. A thought takes shape in your mind and clarity takes hold, but the thought is not your own. You see visions of the strange reptilian beast, that detestable water lizard. You stare into its eyes, hypnotized as it hisses at you, beckoning you forward. You heed its call. Your feet move forward, carrying you over the edge of the belfry and into the water below. You don't thrash about, you don't swim, you don't struggle or resist. You simply sink, welcomed into the rising water's embrace. You have died, led to your demise by the will of Bokrug, the great water lizard. The great old one has ensured that doom has come to this little lakeside town. There are no survivors. Eventually the idol will be found and the process will begin again. But this is of no concern to you. Your visit to Esbury is over. The end. So I guess at some point there was an opportunity to get hold of a gold bar, maybe at the auction, and I missed it or didn't try for it or failed. And that gold bar maybe would have appeased Bokrug and we might have survived. Lived longer than I thought I was going to live. We ended with 5 hit points, 17 luck, 49 sanity, 2% mythos knowledge. First time I've ever gained any mythos points. I don't think we did too badly, but of course, as often happens in Call of Cthulhu, our character died. I hope you have enjoyed this solo experience of Call of Cthulhu. I am Scrapperlock. Until next time, I will see you again for Call of Cthulhu.